Informational interviewing, it's a networking activity. It's good for career development and exploring careers. It's an interview with a person who's doing the type of work that you want to do, or something real similar to what you want to do. And the main purpose is to gain information. You know, you're not interviewing for a job, but you're trying to gain information and advice. And when do you use this? Well, whenever you're wanting to explore different career options, when you want to learn more about a specific occupation or a job, to be able to network with people who could help you with a job search. So it's also a way that you can introduce yourself to people who are working in a career that you want to be working in. So you're learning from them, and you're also introducing yourself, your goals, and your strengths, your training, your skills. You're introducing that to people that may have connections that can help you find jobs. And so it's to start a connection with someone maybe you don't know well, but you feel like that they could benefit you, and you could learn some things from them, and they could give you some good advice in your life, in your career. So how do you do an informational interview? These are some steps that can give you an idea of how you do this, how you walk this out. Number one, you have to identify someone that you want to interview and why you want to interview them. You know, just like Veen, he had his friend Bob. Bob was his direct connection. But he knew Bob directly. Bob was his friend. And because he knew Bob, he knew about Ray. Now, Ray was not Veen's friend, but Ray was Bob's friend. And by Veen knowing Bob, he gained knowledge of Ray. Bob told him about Ray. Bob told him about how Ray had a successful business, and Ray had started that business. And so Veen could identify Ray as someone I would like to interview because he's doing what I want to do. So you identify the person or the people that you want to interview and why you want to interview them. You know, when I was working in the States as a social worker, I lived in a town where there was a university, and there was a social work department. And I was a licensed social worker working in that town. And so I would have students that would contact me, social work students at the university that would contact me, and they would ask to just come and do an interview. And so they wanted to know, just different things. Why did I choose social work? What do I do as a social worker? What have I liked about social work? What has been a challenge? And they would have a list of questions. But that was part of their classwork that they were to do as social work students, because it helped them learn more about the social work field, career. And also, it allowed them to get to know social workers that were working in the career. And it helped them make connections with social workers in the city, because they were students and they're going to have to start looking for jobs, and it's going to be very important for them to know other social workers and agencies, companies that they could possibly interview at for jobs. And so that was, identifying people, you may not know them, but you can find out, maybe through your university, maybe through someone else you can find out people that are working in a career that you want to work in, or people that say you want to study abroad, and you find out you have a friend who knows someone who studied abroad. And so, this is great. I could go and talk to that person and ask them questions and find out what did they do, and what was it like to study abroad? How did that opportunity come to them? What did they do to prepare? And so you think about people that could give you information, give you advice, and you make a list, and then you think about why you want to talk to them. What is the information that you want to gain from them? Then the second thing is you have to contact that person. You have to call them, send them an email. Somehow you have to make contact with them. And you have to ask them for a meeting. You have to ask them for this time of meeting with them. And when you're doing this, there's two different ways you could do this. I think it depends on what you feel comfortable with and how well you know the person. But you can either have a formal meeting, a formal setting, like where you're going to their office, or maybe it's an informal setting where you say, can we have coffee together? And you meet at a coffee shop. And so you're still doing an interview with them, but you're doing it in more of a conversation. You're doing it in an informal place, in a coffee shop. And sometimes that can feel more comfortable, that can feel more like a friend. You're talking in a more comfortable setting. If you're going to talk to somebody who's the dean of a department in a university, you probably want to do that in their office. It's a little bit higher position, and you're probably going to want to do it in an office. If you're talking to somebody that doesn't have quite that kind of position, but they have experience that you want to learn from, it could be more like a coffee shop. Do you have time to just meet me for a cup of coffee? And I could ask you some questions about your career, because I'm interested in doing something like what you're doing. The third thing is to use what we call the 3 Ps. Prepare, that means do some research. Just like what Ving did. Ving did some research. He researched information about starting a business, and he also researched the Ray's business. So he would have some good questions to ask. And then number 2 is practice. Once you have some of those questions down, you've written those questions down, then just kind of practice asking those questions and thinking about, what would be some reactions. If he tells you this, then what would be another question you might ask? You just maybe practice with a friend. Say, okay, you're going to pretend to be Ray, and I'm myself, and I'm going to ask you questions. And so I just want you to help me practice this, okay? And then the third thing is called pull yourself together. That just means, organize your thoughts, have your questions written down, have it, in your phone or your iPad or on a piece of, some paper, a notebook. But make sure you have those questions where you can look at them easy. You're organized when you go. You've got something to write with. You've got maybe you're thinking about leaving some contact information so you know Okay, I can put that in my phone, or I can write it down and hand it to them. And then just think about how you're going to dress. You know, if it's a casual setting, you may dress like you would going to just be with some friends. If you're going into an office, it's more of a formal setting. You may dress more like in a business kind of dress, you know, like wearing nice slacks and a nice shirt, or wearing a dress or a skirt, or nice slacks, you know. And so just think about where you're going to meet this person and how you want to be dressed when you see them. What kind of impression you're wanting to have. So, you know, those are just some ways to kind of think about pulling yourself together, pulling it all together, and having a good presentation when you meet that person. And then the fourth thing, we already talked about it really under preparation, but be sure to write your questions down that you want to ask. Sometimes when you get into a situation and you're talking to somebody, you might forget a question. And so having them written down helps you remember, and it helps you stay focused on what you're wanting to learn from them. And then take notes when you're in the interview. Whether it's taking notes on your on a memo in your phone, or it's taking, writing notes in a notebook, but somehow take notes to where you remember the important things that you want to remember from this. And be sure to ask that person for contact information so that they, you know their phone number or their email address, you know how to contact them in the future, and also be ready to leave your contact information. Be ready to say, can I leave you my name and my email address? So, in the future, if you hear about an opportunity that you think would be interesting for me, that you could contact me. And also, after the interview, when you're finished, be sure to thank them, and also remember to send them some kind of a thank you note, whether it's by email, by a text, or actually written note. I don't think too many people do that these days, where they write a note out, but an email, a thank you for having met with them. And one thing I didn't put on here, but something to also think about, is to ask them, is there anyone else that you think I should talk to that could help me? To tell them how much what they have shared has helped you, and then also to ask them, is there anyone else that you know that you think I should talk to, and you could give me contact information to talk to? So that's really another piece to this also. Yeah, go ahead.
Jumping the gun, but I have two questions, but one of my questions you already opened the next slide, but I have two questions. You might know the idiom that the detail that I would love if you can share with me the way that I could break down the question that I should ask, that I could convey all of the information that I want to know, so I could make the best of the interview. And also, I would like you to tell me a little bit more about how to take notes. Any 2 points.
Okay. Yes. Okay, so yes, the next slide is going to give you some sample questions. Okay. So these are some sample questions that can guide you on what are some of the things you want to ask in this interview with this person. How did they decide on this field of work? How did they get into it? How did they get started? What kind of educational things that they did, but also, what helped them find their jobs. How did they get into it? What do they like best about their work? What do they not like about their work? What's a typical day or week like for them in their occupation? So you kind of understand what it looks like to work in this job. How stressful is the job? What's the schedule that you're going to probably keep when you're working in this job? What kind of skills, education, or training would you need to get into this area of work? What personal qualities are necessary for someone in this occupation? Personal qualities could be like, they may say, you need to be a person that's a very detailed person to be able to do this kind of work. Or you need to learn how to set goals and to manage your time to be able to reach those goals. Or maybe the job is a type of job that you really have to know how to give good customer service. You really have to learn how to communicate well with people. So personal qualities can be a lot of different things, and the person you're interviewing will help you. They'll be able to identify those qualities, the strengths that they have needed that has helped them in those jobs. Okay. Another thing is you may ask, what is a typical entry-level salary? In other words, for someone who is starting, just beginning this kind of job, what do they normally make? What kind of money do they normally make? Now, I would suggest, and this may be more coming from my American culture, I don't know. You know your culture and what's normal in your culture. But in an American culture, I would never ask somebody, how much money do you make? Okay? I would never go to somebody and say, tell me how much money you make. That would be too personal, okay, in the American culture. It was funny, when we first lived in Thailand, that was a very common question for people to ask. And as an American, I'm going, what? Yes, you don't need to know that. Because my American mind is going, no. But, so in your culture. But in an interview, I would say you're not really asking that person maybe to tell you how much they're making, but you're wanting to know, if you start in this job, how much money should you expect to make? And maybe after you gain experience, what would be the salary? After 2 years, 5 years of working in this job, just to give you an idea. And then do you know someone else, and this is where I did put the question, do you know someone else doing this kind of work that I could talk to that could help me with my research? Okay? So those are just some samples, and you may add different questions to that. Now, how to write down, if the person, they know that you are interviewing them to get information, to learn from them, then just simply as they're talking, you may just tell them, I'm going to write down just some notes as you tell me things. I'm going to just write some notes down, and just let them know that you're going to just write down things that they're telling you. And so you may have these questions listed in a notebook. And so maybe you have one question on each page. And so you have the question at the top of the page, and then you have the rest of the page where you can just write down information they give you. And then when you go to the next question, you go to another page in your notebook and you write down the things they tell you there. So it's a way that you can organize your thoughts on the information that they're giving you. That would be one way to do that. Or you could have it, some people are okay with this. You could have your phone and you could say, would it be okay if I recorded our conversation? And so you had your phone and you put it on record and you just record the conversation that you're having. Now, I would say you want to ask them first so that they know that they know that you're recording it and they can say, yes, that's fine, or no, I don't really feel comfortable with that. And then if they say, no, I don't feel comfortable with that, then just have a notebook ready that you can use, and you use that to write down you can write down the information. But if they say yes to recording it, that's a great way to capture that interview, and it helps you, it's a real easy way to capture it, and you can keep that and listen to it. Does that help you? Okay. You're welcome. So let's talk about the internet for a little bit. So first, if you have a Facebook account, stand up. If you have a Facebook account, stand up.
Why?
Is it just about everybody in here? Okay, now sit down. If you communicate with other people either by texting, SMS, or email, or Zalo, or Messenger, stand up and turn around. Okay? If you communicate with other people in this way, stand up and turn around. Okay. Did you turn around? Okay, sit down. If you have ever Googled some person, somebody, something, if you ever used Google to find out any kind of information, raise your hand. Okay, now let me ask you this question. Have you ever Googled your name to see what comes up on the internet about your name? Has anyone ever Googled their name? Yeah?
Nope.
Yeah. It's funny, when I Google my name, there is an American politician that comes up first. But I'm not that person. She's a black lady and she's an American politician. It's like, well, that's not me. So there's another Cynthia McKinney out there. So we know the internet, social media, these things are huge things for us today. And they are major ways that we connect. So it's important to understand a few things about this. First, let's just talk about the good and the bad about social networking. These online options, they can help expand our network and keep us connected with people that we don't see. I stay connected with people in the U.S. that, I may just see one time a year, or it may be 3 or 4 years before I see them, but we stay connected through the social networking. Email and text messages or SMS can make communication easier and faster. Emails and texts can also make communication feel very impersonal, and it can hinder relationship building if we use that for most of our communication. Just a great example of this. I was talking to my son the other day. He's 31 years old, and he's been on Facebook since 2006, and he got off of Facebook. And I said, David, you're not on Facebook anymore. And he says, no, I took a break for a while. He says, too many people, you get the thinking, oh, I have all of these friends on Facebook, but they're not real friends. you don't really know each other. You don't really have good relationships with each other. And he says, I'm tired of that. I don't like that. And he says, I got off of Facebook for a while. I'm taking a break. And I thought, okay. But that's true. That through the internet, we can stay connected, but sometimes those connections are they're not good relationship building connections. Our friendships become very shallow. We don't have real deep friendships. We don't really know people real well. We just know a little bit. And so we don't take time to talk to people by phone or to get with them in person. And so that's just one of the things that can be a barrier if we're using the internet and the social media as our main way to make friends. That's a very good way to stay connected and to get to know someone, but it's not going to make our friendships strong. It's just going to keep us connected. We still have to talk to people. We still have to be with people to be able to build stronger relationships. So that's the good and the bad. Managers, here's another thing we have to know, is that managers can make decisions about hiring people from social media posts. This is a huge thing that people have to be aware of, is that, we post something on Facebook and it's something that we think is funny or, it's just for our friends, but it can go out to many different people. And there are managers, supervisors, HR, human resource people that they're going on to people's Facebooks before they make a decision on whether they're going to hire them or not, because they want to see what kind of things they are posting on Facebook. It helps them make decisions about that person. And that's a little different, when you think, oh wow, what are they going to see on my Facebook feed? What are they going to see? But we have to be aware of that happens in companies. And people can form an opinion of our character and our personality based on how we communicate through emails and text. So maybe they haven't talked to us. They have just read our emails or read our texts, and the way we write those things, people are going to decide, this is a very smart person, this is a very committed person, or this person is very, they seem like they're not too committed, I don't know how hardworking they're going to be. And people will make judgments based on how we write our emails and our text. So, there's just some things that we need to know to help us in these areas. It's not that we disconnect from social media, but we want to learn some good ways to use social media, okay, to where it helps us. So one thing is to be careful. Nothing is private and nothing is permanently deleted. Don't post anything on your site or your friends' sites if you wouldn't want a possible employer to see it. Okay? So just be careful about what you post. Think about it before you post it. Be discreet. You can set your profile to private so that only those you choose so that you choose who can see it. And you can also use blocked comments. That's a feature you can use to control the comments that are posted on your site. Okay? So you may just think about that. You may look at your Facebook. There's a way to look at it to see what are other people seeing, And do you think this is, is this going to be positive for you if an employer looked at it? Would there be something on there that you wouldn't want them to see? And then if there is, then you may also decide how to look at your settings and to set it in a way that you control that more, okay? And be prepared. Check your profile regularly to see what comments have been posted. Do a search online for records of yourself to see what's on the internet about you. If you find information you feel that could hurt your career, see if you can get it removed. There are some ways that you can do that. I've never had to do that. I don't really know exactly how to do that. But I know that that is a recommendation and it can be done. But also be ready to give an explanation for information until it is removed. So let's take an example. Let's say you were in a job, and let's say there was some kind of conflict. You had a problem in a job, and so on Facebook you just start posting all these different things, or maybe it's on Zillow, or I'm not sure how easy Zillow is to see your profile, but let's say Facebook. If you start posting these things, and they're very negative things, you're posting it to your friends, but your setting is to where other people could see it. If they research you, if they're looking for you on Facebook and they pull up your profile, they start seeing these different posts. And maybe these are posts to where you're saying, oh, my supervisor is so stupid. Do you know what my supervisor did today? And da-da-da-da-da. Or you say, you got fired, let's say, from this job, and you're saying, I'm finally released from this horrible place, Well, you're posting this, and you're thinking in your mind, oh, I'm just telling my friends, venting all of this telling my friends about all of this. But maybe in a month, you're interviewing for for another job, and you really would not want them to see all those Facebook posts, because when you were posting that on Facebook, you weren't really thinking about, what if my next employer saw this? You were just thinking about how upset you were, and you were telling your friends about this horrible experience, but then all of a sudden this is on Facebook, and it's out there, and you haven't done anything to try to get it to remove it, and so the next person that you're interviewing with, they decide they're going to research your Facebook profile to see what you've put on there, and all of a sudden they see all of this negative stuff that you wrote about the last place you worked. And that's going to be that's going to have a negative effect on this person that's interviewing you, okay? So that's the kind of things that we're saying, social network, those are great ways to connect. And at the same time, we do have to be careful. We have to be careful with what we're posting, because it can be good and it can be bad if we're not being careful with it. And then here's just some rules. We'll go through these real quick. These are like for email rules. Email rules for professional messages. So we're talking about sending a message that's like to your employer, or to someone that maybe you're wanting to do an interview with. It's on a professional level. It's not like an email to a friend, anything like that, but we're talking about emails in a professional setting. And so rule number 1 is on the subject line to include a subject line, so it helps the reader know what this email's about. Include a greeting, like dear Ving, and then a closing, sincerely, mine. You know, when in a business email, a professional email, it'd be better to not include jokes. Jokes usually don't translate well in email. Avoid using all caps, all capital letters, because usually that means someone thinks you're screaming at them or you're upset with them. Rule number 5 is use business language, do spell check, avoid abbreviations. You know, just spell everything out, make sure it's easily understood. Rule number 6 is avoid gossiping or complaining in your email. Like if you're sending an email in the office between you and another coworker, be very careful that you're not in that email complaining about another coworker, because emails can very easily be forwarded to somebody. And so you want to be aware of that and don't use the email in your office. Don't use the email as a place to complain or to gossip about somebody. And rule number 7 is don't use the emoticons, especially if it's an introductory email. If you're introducing yourself, and the more professional the email is, you don't really want to use the little emoticons, the smiley face, the sad face, those things. That's probably better between us and friends, doing that between our friends. Email rule number 8 is to keep the communication short and direct. A lot of times emails, people, they don't read long emails. They need shorter emails, okay? And then the last one is read the email again before you hit send. So you've written your email, and then you do a spell check, make sure things are spelled right, and then you read it, and you read it again, just to make sure you're saying it the way you want it to be said. You're double checking things, and then you hit send. Okay? Okay, now then, we're just going to wrap this up. We're at the end, so let's do a quick review. A network is the group of people you interact with. Networking occurs every time you start a conversation with someone. We network to find job options, explore career options, and explore career development. A networking tool is informational interviewing. Social media helps us expand our network and stay connected. 3 social media guidelines are: be careful, be discreet, and be, say it again. What was that? Oops. Be prepared. Be prepared. So there's some information out there that somebody's going to ask you about. Just be prepared to explain it. That's what that means. Okay. Email rule number 9 is read. That's it. Read the email again before hitting send. And the last one we didn't discuss because we ran out of time. But basically, the 3rd-degree contacts are the people you want to meet and know, or the people you want to meet and know because they can help you with your goals. So anyway, thank you so much. I hope some of this gave you